surgical robot. And we actually ultimately want this robot to do essentially the entire surgery. So in everything from incision, removing the skull, inserting the electrodes, placing the device, and then closing things up and having you ready to leave. So we want to have a fully automated system. And to be clear, this robot does actually work. We've used it for all of the implantations. So this shows you at sort of close-up view, which I think is actually not too gruesome, of the electrodes being inserted in the brain. And if you look closely, you'll see that it's a little counterintuitive that if the electrodes are inserted very carefully, that there's no bleeding. And so if you have very tiny electrodes, and if they're inserted very carefully, so that the robot actually images the brain and makes sure to avoid any veins or arteries, so that the electrodes can be inserted with no noticeable damage. So you will have no noticeable neural damage in inserting the link. Yeah, like you sort of think like if you stab something with a wire, surely it will bleed, but actually at a really small scale, it does not.
Is that everything will be integrated into an ecosystem driven by big data.
As a reminder, my notion and my book of the Fourth Industrial Revolution is that the innovations we are seeing today in terms of artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, advanced robotics, and many others, together constitute a new phase in human development, on par or even exceeding previous industrial revolutions in scale and impact. COVID-19, if anything, has accelerated this ongoing industrial revolution. If COVID had happened even 10 years ago, we could not have imagined moving entire companies, schools, and government offices so fast online. Today, that is a reality. The fourth industrial revolution has become a reality, not just for the pioneers, but for a broad range of people and workers. We are also seeing macroeconomic consequences, changes. Big tech companies such as Apple, Samsung, Alphabet, Amazon, or Facebook already are among the largest global companies, but the last months have further cemented their leading positions in the market, while others have started to lag further behind. That will prove to be not only the case now, but will be a permanent consequence of COVID-19.
Sometime after the year 2008, an entity or a group of people under the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto came out with the famous white paper that highlighted a new electronic form of currency that would independently change everything about money. A new revolution had begun. Blockchain was the core technology foundation of this new currency.
And this revolution has now culminated into a global phenomenon where governments, private and public sector firms are embarking on creating more value, more change, and solving some of the world's biggest problems.
My journey of understanding this global movement to create more trust, secure our transactions, and create more value started in the city of Dubai. This is where the vision of tomorrow is driving an aggressive strategy of how technology can augment our capabilities. Follow me on this journey as I embark on a quest to find the truth from those who know best where we're headed. In the middle of the Arabian Peninsula, one of the most well-known cities is Dubai, a fast-growing metropolis and the epicenter of change in the Middle East. Dubai has always been synonymous with progress, challenging the status quo, and dreaming big.
The government of Dubai, with its vision of tomorrow, powered by technology, has embarked on an aggressive plan to enable a blockchain-based government by 2020. The UAE also has a national plan to enable blockchain across all 7 Emirates by the year 2030.
Don't fear from technology. Be smart on how to deal with these technologies. Doesn't matter if it is a blockchain or big data or any type of technologies, even our smart devices, as long as we know why we are using it. If you don't know how to use them, go and educate yourself. Make sure that you utilize the best of these technologies for your own benefit. We need to be wise enough to understand what these technologies will add value to my life. And for me personally, as long as it will make my life much simpler and much easier, I will go for it. We started the Smart Dubai initiative in 2014. We continued with this kind of research exercise to see what are the advanced technologies, emerging technologies that will take Dubai to its next level. You know that in Dubai we started digitization of our government in 2000. So we've been into now almost 2 decades in digitizing our infrastructure. We know today, whenever anyone talks about blockchain, they think about the financial sector, but we dig deeper.
What blockchain is enabling us is doing something like social goods. If you, for example, look into what the United Nations are doing, or the World Wildlife Fund, using the blockchain technology to prevent overfishing in the South Pacific or to prevent children trafficking by using blockchain technology, then you can see that there are really kind of societal problems which can be addressed or are currently addressed in prototypes by blockchain implementations.
From efficiency to identity management, financial transactions, and more, there seems to be a vast range of applications.
We started as a publishers, and we saw the print media going down. We were trying to find the answers, where it is going, what is the media future. So we were thinking that we need to give all the power to the authors, those who create the media, and we realized very quickly that there are so many inequalities in the world, and that without giving the ownership to those who really create the value in the economy, there will be no possibility to bring back the trust and create something that will disrupt these monopolies that are, controlling the entire media space now.
From manufacturing to logistics, transportation, healthcare, and real estate, every sector, every industry is set to undergo a radical shift in the next few years, potentially because of blockchain.
We must find out what blockchain really is, and more than that, how it can be defined by what value it brings.
A blockchain is essentially a breakthrough in database technology. It's a new kind of database system that, because of its architecture, enables everybody on the system to trust the system.
It's a tool for decentralizing relationships, contracts, and decision making so that they aren't mediated by gatekeepers of various kinds. It's a very powerful idea.
If you use a little example here to make it a bit more illustrative to the viewers, you could think of a transaction which we all observe. So let's assume all the viewers here which are watching us right now would have a little black notebook on their lap and would kind of take notes of all the transactions they are seeing. And they are seeing right now a person here standing which maybe they are not familiar with, and that person is holding $20 in his hands. So you have super sharp eyes and you can see the ID and everything, and this is a legal token. So now you see that I give this $20 to this gentleman over here, which you don't know, but you have seen the transaction took place. Now you write this transaction in your little black notebook and calculate a little sum to that, and you add all the subsequent transactions to that. Now let's say in 5 minutes I'm saying, oh, wait a minute, that went $20, that were $100, and I want my $100 back. So all the people who are viewing this transaction, I would have now to convince that their transaction, which have been kind of jotted down in their little black notebooks, are not actually $20 but $100. Now how would I do that, right? Because I don't know how many people actually have a ledger, have written down this transaction. And on top of that, I would have kind of pried my way through. I have to persuade them to change the entry. Why would they do that, right? Because they don't know me, there's nothing they can gain here. And in parallel, all the other transactions which are ongoing, because more people kind of doing payments, they have to be jotted down as well. So they would be super busy, and that would be prohibitively expensive for me to do so. So economically, it doesn't make sense.
Despite the various explanations that blockchain is defined as, it's still hard to sometimes comprehend the actual technology. And for that, we must understand it beyond just its architecture. One of the most innovative and forward-thinking countries in the world is also one of the tiniest European nations, Estonia. Over the last 2 decades or so, Estonia has really laid the foundation of a digitally powered nation and is now reaping its rewards. Estonia is also considered to be a leader in blockchain, which in some ways is often a less represented fact.
Estonia kind of had blockchain databases before the term blockchain was coined. But I would have to say that Estonia is not a blockchain nation, so we don't run fully on blockchain. We just happen to be in a position where we created similar databases that are now referred to as blockchain technologies. And we use that in our people's registry and to run our state databases and systems.
One of the other benefits of blockchain is also mass collaboration and the ease of sharing information to create value. The Netherlands, with its Dutch blockchain coalition, is spearheading efforts to create global awareness and impact.
It's a missing piece to support collaboration between different companies, between different governments in a supply chain. It can help you to work together and to give you as a person a better user experience and make new things possible.
And yet, where would we be without really addressing the need for us humans to live a life of acknowledgement, respect, dignity, and value? Maybe blockchain can help us realize our true human potential.
For me, blockchain is going to help me become more me. It's going to celebrate my individuality. I feel like the IP of who we are and our ideas will have value and meaning, and I think that's going to be a huge shift.
The idea of blockchain being a radical new technology that can address many different challenges we currently face as people across the world is sometimes hard to accept.
How can one technology, often confused with Bitcoin, have so many different applications? The answer may be similar to something we faced about 30 years ago with the mass commercialization of personal computing. Skeptics back then probably asked, how could computers be used in every profession? How can they increase productivity? How can microprocessors change the world? Today, we have overcome all of those questions as time has proved the value of computing technology beyond anything we could have imagined. What then are some of the possibilities of blockchain, and how can we really use it beyond just financial transactions?
There are literally thousands of projects that people are building out. Identity systems, reputation systems, governance tools, accounting systems.
For us, it was just the kind of financial benefit and the ease of actually accessing digital services or public services. That you don't have to go to the tax man and stay there for 2 hours and sign a piece of paper. That you could do it from your computer. It's just comfort and it saves you a lot of time. Also, it saves you financing.
We are putting the contents of Wikipedia plus an extra 1 million articles that we've added to Wikipedia on the blockchain. What that means is that if somebody creates a new article and adds it to the database, they actually mine, by doing that, some tokens. We call them IQ tokens. What that means is that you become a co-owner. You have a financial stake in the creation and the quality of knowledge.
It seems like challenges within government, banking, finance, and even real estate could now have an answer to create a higher rate of return on efforts, work, and productivity in general.
One of our projects is to add efficiency in our reconciliation system between bank accounts. Normally, this kind of transaction take almost 45 days. And we thought by implementing blockchain, it will add 30 to 40% efficiency. But it gave us 100%. It dropped that time from 45 days to 0.
The Internet of Value is about rewiring the global financial infrastructure to dramatically improve the cost, speed, and certainty of how transactions flow. It's amazing to me how many people really don't realize how much friction there is in payments. We've become habituated to just expecting this is how it works. And I think, like so many other industries that have been disrupted by reducing friction, increasing speed, I think we're going to see a dramatic change over the next 10 or even 15 years that are really hard to predict today, that are the foundation that will be laid upon that Internet of Value. XRP is part of the heartbeat of Ripple. It is the foundation of how we think about liquidity management, and a core problem that how the financial infrastructure works is around how liquidity is managed. Today, financial institutions are wired with pools of capital. They're called Nostro and Vostro accounts. And these are accounts that are pre-funded between financial institutions. And that's capital sitting dormant and not being used for either working capital or lending or what have you. By using a digital asset, you can enable liquidity in real time. This is transformational to how global financial infrastructure is wired. Every marathon starts with a single step. For us, the first step is getting financial institutions engaged in working with us, getting them to understand how the core technology with Xcurrent works, introducing how we can help manage liquidity. There's a lot of friction and cost associated with banks and financial institutions working with other institutions. We can change and accelerate how that works really materially, dramatically, and I think introducing XRP into those flows will take time, but as I said, every marathon starts with a single step. When I zoom out and look at where Ripple sits in the blockchain and crypto ecosystem, we are incredibly fortunate to be the only company with real customers solving real problems. That is at the early stages of that marathon, but there's no doubt that as we look at the race that has started, we're the only ones that have crossed that starting line.
It's no longer an idea or something on the horizon. It's here, a reality today. Crypto. And it's already a part of how businesses and people trade, move, and manage value. In 2021, established financial institutions such as PayPal, Square, Visa, and MasterCard built out crypto-based products and services. This type of institutional enthusiasm indicates that crypto is here to stay. Today, enterprises are looking to diversify asset holdings, to offer crypto trading services to end customers, to pay employees in crypto, and to accept crypto as a form of payment. To support these activities, institutions need access to crypto liquidity. Coming in 2022 and beyond, at Ripple, we're building Liquidity Hub. Once launched, Ripple's Liquidity Hub platform will enable companies to seamlessly access crypto from a variety of venues. The product will support a turnkey integration and allow companies to offer their end customers the ability to buy, sell, and hold crypto. Enterprises will be able to maintain separate accounts via Ripple's custody solution and monitor and analyze transactions through a comprehensive dashboard. But that will be just the beginning for Liquidity Hub. As a leading liquidity platform, it will enable many additional enterprise applications for crypto. and serve as a cost-effective way to source a variety of new and cutting-edge crypto assets. Join us for this exciting journey as we explore new horizons and applications of crypto.
So why not transferring this experience to the rest transactions in the government, whether it be internally, in our, for instance, HR transactions, procurement transaction, but also the transaction for the users. Why I should wait like for days or months to buy a house? Why it's not only like a matter of pressing a button?
Just imagine how complicated bureaucracies are, right? And translating that into code, which is what's required by putting those operations on the blockchain, sounds like a very tall order. There is a natural tension, actually, between government operations in general and the blockchain, because what the blockchain is disintermediating relationships between individuals.
Distributed, disintermediated relationships, a distributed ledger, so many ways in which blockchain is defined today. But at the epicenter of every industry, services, products, and a profession is a pivotal need, something that forms the foundation of everything that we all inadvertently have a need for: trust. And when it comes to the complex workings of governments across the world, the need for consensus.
First, you have to find the trust in your citizens, that they trust the government with their data. It's a psychological thing to actually earn the trust. And then you have to have a very rigid system of infrastructure with these databases that we can actually access different data, pull it together. I think these are the first steps. It's definitely not an easy journey, but to stay competitive, I do think it's necessary.
In Dubai, we didn't take every sector individually. We took it from an experience perspective. So when we launched this strategy, we focus on 3 elements. The first element is to transfer the applicable government services to be 100% to be run on top of a blockchain. The second component to support building the blockchain industry in Dubai by attracting startups and entrepreneurs in this industry. And the third component to be a global thought leader when it comes to, again, the blockchain industry. When it comes to transferring the government services, we managed to bring almost 60 different bodies, whether it be government or non-government, and we came up with 20 use cases that by 2020 will be transferred to be run on top of blockchain. One of them is the real estate, but other is having health records on top of blockchain, educational records on top of blockchain, and so forth. And by bringing all these government agencies and non-government agencies in the same room, this by itself was a huge success, because the main challenge in any government, not only in Dubai, but even globally, is the silos happen between government entities. They don't talk to each other.
At the European Blockchain Center, we do workshops with politicians where we discuss what needs to be done and where to start. One very important building block is how you deal with responsibility and accountability. How do you regulate blockchain startups as they are virtual and decentralized and distributed in these autonomous organizations, so it's really difficult to say how to regulate them and where they are creating value. So it's important for these governments and for these political decision makers to understand how this system works and how they can contribute to growth and value creation in those countries.
But now we have someone from the private sector. Brad Garlinghouse, who is the CEO of the financial technology company Ripple.
I will start off by also thanking Charles, thanking Thomas, thanking Christine. It's an honor to be included. And as was introduced, I think they saved me for last so that I could talk about the private sector version of this. I also start by kind of explaining the basics of what Ripple is and what Ripple is not. Ripple is a private company. We're based in California, about 300 or 400 employees around the world. And we're trying to solve a problem. We're selling technologies to banks and financial institutions to solve a cross-border payments problem. To be clear, we have not focused on the central bank digital currency issuance. Our view is very much there needs to be interoperability globally. And even in a world of CBDCs, you still need interoperability to solve that problem. Also, before I dive in, my comments are more focused on kind of explaining how Ripple's approaching this problem as opposed to just CBDCs. But I thought it worth spending a moment on how we think about blockchain at large and why it is such an interesting technology and I think appropriate for central banks and commercial banks to be looking at. For me, the novelty of any blockchain technology is the ability for two parties to transact without trust, but with certainty. So today, anytime we transact, we are transacting through a central counterparty, whether that be a correspondent bank where Ripple is focused, or that be a Visa or American Express, what have you. The opportunity around blockchains is to change that dynamic, and I think many industries, whether it's payments, what we're talking about today, or securities, or even loans, any of those transactions I think can be disrupted and made more efficient through blockchain technologies. All right, so with that kind of brief introduction, I'll be brief on some of my comments here because we've touched on this already. I think we would largely have few arguments with the idea that global payments today have not caught up with the age of the internet. We talk about slow. We've talked about the 14 days that Norman mentioned. The younger generations today are accustomed to be able to open up their smartphone and click on a button and have an ice cream delivered in 20 minutes. They aren't going to be very happy when it takes their payments, days and lots of costs to get to them. Another thing that is, I think, often lost upon us is the opaqueness in the problems with which correspondent banking currently operates. There's a 6% error rate self-published that 6% of all SWIFT transactions require human intervention. Now, that doesn't mean they don't get there. It just means that human intervention adds time, it adds cost, and what have you. And lastly, when we talk about cost, it isn't just about transaction fees. It's also about the pre-funding required for commercial banks and even large corporations and the cost of that capital. What's amazing to me is that these costs are often borne or burdened the populations that are least able to afford them. Data from the IMF and the World Bank would say that the average remittance costs around 600 basis points in a world where we think about the internet enabling kind of real-time instant information. Why can't we use these new technologies to build an internet of value? When we look at the current dynamic I was just talking about, the pre-funding, if the correspondent banking network requires this pre-funding, I'm not talking about a central bank level as much as I'm talking about at a commercial level. And oftentimes, even when I'm meeting with senior people at various banks or financial institutions, they'll talk about their cost to fund into the Mexican peso, and they'll cite a very, very low number. But what that doesn't include is the cost of capital that's sitting at a bank there. It also restricts competition because it requires capital to get it there. Our view in the future is you don't have to have this pre-funding, and instead you can use a digital asset to have global liquidity on demand. Now, we build upon a tech stack of an open source technology called XRP. XRP originally was built by some engineers who had seen some of the flaws of Bitcoin and the challenges of scalability around Bitcoin. Where Bitcoin today, on a per transaction basis, it's rather slow and rather expensive. XRP is very, very fast, about 1,000 times faster per transaction and 1,000 times cheaper per transaction. The other dynamic, of course, of correspondent banking is some of the more quote-unquote exotic currencies, exotic corridors have been left to kind of stand on their own. And the liquidity in digital assets could be applied to actually make that much more democratized and a level playing field. Ripple's vision from the beginning really has been to apply these technologies in the same way that TCP/IP and HTTP are the technologies underpinning the Internet of Information. These blockchain technologies will be the underpinnings of an Internet of Value. where we have connected devices, we have connected information that will allow payments to flow. And as Norman was describing, if you're a large corporation moving $100 million, that's one thing. If you're a freelancer working in the Philippines doing design work for a company in London, and you want to get paid $30 or 30 pesos, Philippine pesos, that's not a transaction that can easily be enabled. And in fact, for the companies that enable that, they require the freelancer to set up an account, and they don't actually pay it out until there's roughly 1,000 USD sitting in that account, and then they would pay it out. So Ripple has come to the market with 3 products, and I will just briefly touch on them. The first one is called Xcurrent, and the reason why I'll point this out is because Xcurrent doesn't touch crypto. Xcurrent is just kind of Swift 2.0. It's a messaging framework that is much more efficient and real-time as compared to fiat to fiat. That typically is how we start working with any bank or any financial institution, is on a fiat to fiat basis. The bottom product we see down here is called XRapid, and XRapid is really where we use XRP to fund real-time liquidity. We brought this product to market in Q4 of last year, and immediately we saw the demand for that type of product from banks, financial institutions who want to open up new corridors for payments, but don't want to open up new nostro-vostro relationships and the friction and overhead that goes with that. The third product is really simply an API that allows corporates to do real-time payouts into this network we call RippleNet. The challenge here, as many of you may know, is there's corporations ranging from Uber to Amazon to less technically efficient companies. They employ hundreds of engineers that just integrate into payment networks around the world. They're building custom APIs into payment networks in the Philippines or Indonesia, into the Middle East, what have you, so they can enable those payouts. We think by standardizing on an open source API, we can make that more efficient for everyone. We've been fortunate, and actually, I meant to say up front, I had a very good conversation before we started this panel. One of the things I worry about when we talk about blockchain technologies is sometimes they are a solution in search of a problem instead of a problem in search of a solution. There's many times when people come and talk to me about blockchain solutions, and I ask them, why can't we just use a database? Why is a blockchain a better solution? And in Silicon Valley, where I've been for 22 years, sometimes it's catnip for investors. It's just to get investors excited, where a database would be more efficient. Now, the reason why I offer these remarks at the beginning of this slide is I think one of the reasons why Ripple has done well is we've been very focused on solving a specific problem for a specific customer, and we've been focused on that for a long time. And we've been fortunate, therefore, to get about 200 customers globally now working with us in one way or another. So I'll conclude just by saying I think the excitement around blockchain is well-founded, and it will impact many, many industries in the same way the Internet of Information 20 years ago has impacted many, many industries. But I also think sometimes that the hype gets ahead of the reality, and we need to be clear about what problems we're trying to solve, whether it's at a central bank level, a commercial bank level, or in other industries altogether.
Because it's always available on blockchain. Can industry benefit from this? Perhaps one of the big challenges that creative artists face can be solved with blockchain-related technologies.
So many examples of how it can change the music industry. I mean, a very simple example is if you've signed a contract with somebody for, say, a record deal or a publishing deal, it's all about percentages, and it's about at this point this happens, at this point this happens, this person gets paid when this is recouped. Anytime any artist has ever audited a label, they've always found money. So I think there's something in being able to digitize your contract into smart contracts to help you interface with the services of the future. One of the biggest bugbears in the music industry that's failed time and time again is to try to create a verified, authorized global database of music, of songs, a repertoire. And it's failed time and time again because it's been about ownership. It's been about, this is mine, we're going to try and do this all to ourselves. But in opening that up and becoming an open database where people can author that and attribute their worth to that and potentially be a part of that payment in the future also makes these things possible. I feel finally we can create a music ecosystem that is worthy of the music that we love.
Content creators can now be compensated for their hard work and finally fight the war with piracy, which costs the music industry billions of dollars every year. But can you and I, as content creators, benefit with a technology such as blockchain as well?
When it comes to real-world blockchain adoption, it doesn't get much better than VeChain. In 2019, VeChain is successfully linking products with consumers in a story of values, trust, and digital technology. We're going to find out exactly how VeChain is working with global enterprises to bring forward blockchain technology to our everyday lives. Coming up. VeChain is using blockchain to track the life cycles of goods through the supply chain. It's a low-cost, easy-to-use solution that follows a product from its origination point to its end user. The solution significantly reduces fraud, counterfeiting, and product tampering. If you'd like to learn about the full scope of this project, make sure you check out part 1 of this video series. Today's consumers want to know more about the products they consume. With digital technologies, we can tell the true story of each product. The VeChain collaboration with MyStory has started to roll out their initial product, which will use VeChain hardware tags. The VeChain dApp collaboration is with DNVGL, a leading global provider of product assurance and certification. 3 Italian winemakers are the first to implement MyStory. They have each produced one wine with a unique digital identity, giving consumers instant access to the true story behind the bottle by simply scanning a QR code. All the information gathered through the MyStory process will be stored on the VeChain Thor public blockchain. By scanning a QR code, the consumer can use the MyStory application to browse the different product characteristics and production processes behind it. The full history of the journey is easily available with the information checked and verified by DNVGL. It's a scalable and affordable enterprise solution that will prove the quality of products and prevent high-end wine from being refilled with cheap knockoffs and passed off as the real thing. QR codes in MyStory have 2 purposes. One is to establish the uniqueness of a bottle, and second, the authenticity of a bottle. In this bottle of wine, the QR code is reproducible. It doesn't need to be copy-proof, as it's only used to tell the story of batch traceability. This example is tagged with MyStory. It's secure, and the tag refers to a specific bottle of wine. The tag has a yellowish tint, which is a unique micro QR code that can't be copied, which is the same technology used to protect banknotes. Finally, this wine has 2 reproducible QR codes that tell the story and also identify the uniqueness of the bottle. Securing even a small percentage of the wine produced and shipped each year would make VeChain one of the most heavily used blockchains in the world. But wine isn't the only thing criminals fake. Clothes, shoes, luxury items like purses and sunglasses, you name it. Someone is probably counterfeiting it right now. Do you ever worry about buying a counterfeit product? With so many fakes and copies out there in the market, most people don't know what they're looking for to determine if their product is genuine. Counterfeit products make up the biggest black market in the world, estimated at $461 billion per year, which is even larger than the $426 billion global drug market. Last year, a group smuggled more than 300,000 pairs of fake Nike Air Jordan sneakers into New York with a total value of $70 million. If Nike spent just 1% of the $70 million building a solution against counterfeiting, they would greatly increase their market share and profit potential. Counterfeiting is a global problem, and VeChain is bringing its solution to major companies. In a world rife with counterfeits, companies can now use blockchain to prove product origin and allow consumers to verify product authenticity instantly with a smartphone. Last year, VeChain has joined hands with SBTG, the famous shoe artist who has worked worked on designs with Nike, Kobe Bryant, Puma, and Reebok. These shoes have been called the shoes of the future. With the use of NFC chips, buyers can keep track of the shoes via their digital footprint. It's a trustless way to confirm the authenticity of the shoe, and all of this is being stored on the VeChain Thor blockchain. Imagine being able to use your phone to verify something is real. It will dramatically change retail and also the process of buying something secondhand, a new, trustless method of verifying authenticity. Arket is a clothing brand for various essential products for men, women, and children. It will be using VeChain's blockchain to actively track their products. This will enable the final consumer to have a clearer insight into the origin of their purchase. The two are working on a proof of concept that tracks a product's origin through the supply chain. Arket has done a small proof of concept through a pilot testing with VeChain to use blockchain technology to secure product data traceability. The product used for the trial is a wool beanie from the 2018 collection. By scanning the product's NFC chip, customers can access detailed information of the product, such as its origin, material, supplier, and so forth. This kind of implementation is just the tip of the iceberg with regards to supply chain adoption in the real world. The revenue potential for blockchain in the auto industry is expected to reach $120 billion by 2030. These days, smartphones and computers are not the only devices that collect and store our data. Our cars store more and more information, but on the used car market, there's a huge problem: mileage manipulation. With the help of VeChain's public blockchain and the DApp Verify car from BMW, this problem can be solved. Vehicle owners can use the app to transfer important information such as mileage or service and repair history, verified and validated via the VeChain blockchain. Mileage manipulation can cause damages of up to $8 billion per year. In the long run, this leads to a loss of customer confidence. The Verify car DApp would record not only the mileage but also all other activities of the vehicle and store it on the VeChain public blockchain. In the future, customers of the BMW group would be able to assign an individual QR code for each car, which can then be scanned to obtain the necessary information. If BMW adopts VeChain's solution, a snowball effect will likely follow. Hundreds of independent repair shops, insurance companies, and rental companies will all be interested to log data from future vehicle purchases, services, parts, and repairs on the VeChain blockchain. That's easily millions of transactions per year. VeChain has recently launched a one-click solution into Amazon Web Services cloud platform.
So let's start with a picture. This is a wind turbine, and now we're showing you a picture and not the real-time data because that's proprietary. But this is a wind turbine that's been manufactured by General Electric, and it's equipped with sensors. What makes a machine like this special is that it's actually connected to software that uses both real-time and historic data of both this machine and the wind farm that it's a part of to generate anywhere from 5 to 10% more power. That in turn can boost profits as much as 20%. And so that is really part of this larger trend, this Internet of Things, or here at GE's 3-year-old software center, what's simply known as the industrial internet. So at GE, what they've done is they have developed software and dozens of applications that are catering to these big machines across a wide variety of industries, anything from power generation to railroad networks to, in the case of this video we're going to show you right here, an application that is tracking oil and gas pipelines for environmental risks to get well ahead of any potential leak. This is still very much in infancy stages, but it represents a huge opportunity. So Accenture notes that spending on the industrial Internet of Things could reach $500 billion by 2020, and that the broader global economic impact of this could reach the trillions of dollars by 2030. And that's why GE has certainly been on the forefront of this. It's partnering with everyone from AT&T to SoftBank to Verizon to Cisco to Intel, just to name a few. But why you're seeing in general a number of industrial heavyweights start to pour resources in this area, including Honeywell, Emerson, and Rockwell Automation. So again, wind turbine, 5 to 10% more power generation using software, in turn, 20% more profits. It's this idea of increased productivity using technology.
What's your reaction to this news? I mean, did you know that DVRs were so readily hackable?
Yeah, absolutely. These Internet of Things devices, DVRs, cameras, phones, refrigerators, toasters, all of these types of Internet of Things devices are all actually computers. Unlike traditional computers, these things are developed and produced for pocket change.
Okay.
And so there's really a limited amount of security functionality that comes with them.
So why aren't they more secure?
Well, as I said, they're really being produced for pocket change, so
I understand,
they have
but if they're so readily accessible to hackers, why aren't they more secure then?
Well, at the foundation, it's because people don't think of them, and corporations don't think of these devices as computer systems when in fact they are. So frequently,
but the hackers are thinking of them that way.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, and that's why we're seeing events as we've seen this week unfold, where really it's an opening of Pandora's box, where the devices in your physical environment can be used to generate attacks into your technology environment. And oh, by the way, it works vice versa. People can now use computers from faraway systems to attack your Internet of Things devices, the locks on your doors, your HVAC and air conditioning systems, your refrigeration systems. You can do all sorts of really scary things in this new world.
Well, this is just dandy. So what do I do? I mean, I put some tape over the computer, camera. I guess you're supposed to do that nowadays. But do I unplug the DVR and throw it out the window and, make sure that I don't buy anything that's connected to anything ever again?
Yeah. Well, what we shouldn't do is we shouldn't panic. What we need to do is take a much more mature approach and think about the risk of what we're actually doing. If you think about the Internet of Devices infrastructure as computer systems, what you have to do is you have to apply the same type of discipline to it. So you have to be able to provide for the identity and the authentication of these devices. You want to be able to limit the access and the control that they have into your environment. And you also want to monitor them differently. So RSA and other organizations are developing technologies with next generation monitoring capability to look not only at your traditional compute environment, but also at what's happening in the Internet of Things environments as those two worlds merge.
So just to put this in plain speak, you're telling me that there will soon be a way with your technology or somebody's that I can do what? Open an app and see if anybody's hacking my DVR?
Right, so that's exactly what you'll be doing. You'll be opening an app and you'll be making sure that your DVR only has access to what in your computing environment you want it to have access to, and that it's behaving as you would expect a DVR to behave and not attacking somebody else's website or stealing information from your own computer systems.
Christina is doing, but I do wish she had some legal guardrails. We don't really know the worst case scenarios with the internet until after they happen. And it always seems like something that's convenient for one person turns into a nightmare for someone else.
So my name is Farial Nejam, and I'm a survivor of domestic violence and specifically also tech abuse. My abuser, he utilized our smart home against me and used it as a means of control and harassment. Everything could be controlled by these apps. So he didn't even actually have to be in my presence. He could be out of the country, thousands of miles away. With this tech abuse, the way that he was utilized the house against me was really through sleep deprivation. And that sleep deprivation really added an extra layer to the mental anguish that I was going through. I would be asleep, dead asleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, for instance, and all of a sudden, the audio system just blares up this horrific, violent music. You're shocked awake. It is scary because it's pitch black. And I would turn on the lights, of course, and go to the iPad and try to turn off the system. And he would then either switch the lights on and off. He would flicker the TV on and off. He would turn the audio on and off. That would occur not for a few minutes, like 4, 5, 6 hours. This is used as a tool to harass you, to stalk you within your home. It's hard. It's hard even with all the trauma work that I've done. It's triggering because it takes you back to that night. It takes me back to those moments of where I felt hopeless
I felt hopeless.
We're all giving up some of our autonomy and human power to these devices. Always, constantly, every day. Reporting on situations of domestic violence with smart home technology made me realize how bad it could get.
Things do feel pretty bad, and it's not just me. While I was making this film, our relationship to the internet and its makers reached an all-time low. Even internet executives were feeling guilty.
We have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works.
I would be ashamed if I were you.
And that was a big mistake. And it was my mistake.
I feel tremendous guilt.
And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that this happened.
The internet, a scientific breakthrough, is punished by the gods. Smart cities will pullulate with sensors, all joined together by the internet of things. Your mattress will monitor your nightmares, your fridge will beep for more cheese, click by click, tap by tap. Data. Computer says yes, or computer says no. What will it mean? Pink-eyed Terminator sent back from the future to cull the human race.
At a moment in time, three defining technologies will emerge over a civilization and converge. First, new communication technologies to more efficiently manage our economic and social life. Second, new sources of energy to more efficiently power our economic life, social life, and governance. And third, new modes of mobility and logistics to more efficiently move our economic, social life, and governance. So, in those rare points in history where new communication revolutions converge with new energy regimes and new modes of mobility and logistics, it transforms the way a civilization organizes its collective life.
According to Rifkin, the first industrial revolution was caused by a new source of energy, coal, which powered a new communications medium, the steam-powered press, and a new logistics infrastructure in the railway.
Locomotives, national transport, hub-to-hub traffic. We got the first major industrial urban centers, and our business models moved to market capitalism. Second industrial revolution in the United States, another convergence of communication, energy, mobility that changed everything. The telephone. Try to imagine for the first time in history, in the late 19th century, people are picking up this little device and their voice is traveling virtually over thousands of miles at the speed of light. And then later radio and television, those communication technologies in the US converged with a new source of energy. The Texas oil wells came in. And then Henry Ford put out that cheap internal combustion engine powered by that oil. We went from national markets to the build out of global markets. It changed our way of life.
The last two revolutions left us a world powered by oil. It's led us to the largest crisis we've ever faced.
The second industrial revolution, it's fading away. I think we kind of smell it, we can feel it. We are now on the cusp of a third industrial revolution. We're 30 years into the World Wide Web. 3.5 billion people are connected digitally in their communication. That communication internet that's now connecting the human race is just now converging with a renewable energy internet. Millions of people are producing their own solar and wind, and what they're not using, they're sending back on an increasingly digitalized power grid.
Rifkin's thesis is that communications and energy are already online. And when autonomous vehicles connect to smart roads and urban infrastructure via the internet, the third revolution will be complete.
Communication internet, digital. The renewable energy internet, digital. The mobility internet, digital. To manage, power, and move economy and society. They ride on top of a platform, and that's the Internet of Things.
We don't need to wait for self-driving cars to see how the way we move things has been changed. Shenzhen is the city the internet built. Anytime you order anything electronic from Amazon, you've set off a chain of events that would have passed through here, the Washanbei market. 90% of the world's electronics come through Shenzhen, and that's why this former fishing village went from 30,000 people to 12 million in 30 years. It's central to Chinese tech companies like Tencent, Alibaba, and Huawei. This is not a shopping mall on steroids. It's part of the world's most advanced electronics supply chain. Each one of these booths is actually the front office of a factory on the outskirts of Shenzhen. The moment I check out my order, the internet connects me to this factory. And if you're making a new device for the Internet of Things, there's nowhere faster than Shenzhen. In this market, you'll find every piece necessary to build whatever you can dream up. It's why Christina joined the never-ending parade of startups who come to Shenzhen and prototyped Keg.
I came to Shenzhen because you can quickly prototype. So for example, when you do a prototype in the United States, it takes ages to get anything ordered, a PCB made, PCB assembled. But here you can do everything in one day. Really new, like for example, this subway station. A year ago it was not here, they were not open. Yeah, they're like moving super fast.
China is quickly moving to become the leading nation of the third industrial revolution.
This is not well known in the West, but China's leadership began to realize that CO2 was a big problem. The chairman of the national electricity grid, the state grid, announced a massive multi-billion-dollar effort, now operational in the new 5-year plan, to digitalize that entire utility grid, put it in place, generate their own energy, and share what they don't need back to the grid. Boom, like that. They're putting out millions of electric vehicles right now. Millions right now, over the next few years. They're already in production.
It's hard not to be impressed by China's speed. But the implications for connecting an entire society go beyond smart energy grids and can be, well, creepier. Chinese cities now collect data from millions of surveillance cameras, from public transit, and from sensors embedded in streetlights and buildings. Data about where people are and what they're doing. If you live in Hangzhou, you are part of an experiment in modifying the behavior of citizens known as social credit.
现在我们要去坐水上巴士，可以用我们的杭州市民卡 APP， 里面有一个钱江分我们领取公交卡了以后呢，就可以扫码上船。我今天采用的扫码上传的方式呢是这个钱江分。我们这个钱江分呢，它其实也是引导市民诚信向善，弘扬社会主义核心价值观。其实它这个地方会有很多的这个勋章领取，那点进去呢，我们可以看到勋章领取里面呢有低碳行者、爱心使者和文体达人。那低碳行者呢，顾名思义，就是如果你的出行是用共享类的，像我们的水上巴士、公交系统，还有共享单车，或者是你自己喜欢走路，那它都会给你相应的一个积分。我现在的分才589，所以我现在还只是一般水平。
So how Black Mirror is this? You get points for being good, saving carbon, giving to charity, and exercising. You can trade in your karma points for free stuff. But the Chinese government has put 13 million citizens on a blacklist using systems like this, marked as dishonest for jaywalking, being late on a loan, or anything else deemed antisocial. Those users can be blocked from flying, registering for insurance, or buying a house. Tying it all together is a payment system created by Alibaba that has completely replaced cash. Its algorithm examines your purchases to determine trustworthiness. It's kind of like if Amazon was your bank.
像这两个系统，他们的工作人员可能对我整个人他就一清二楚，甚至是这种系统其实就是你人的一个全部，它可以看出你各种你的一些生活习惯啊，你的一些品质啊，甚至你的一些性格，它其实都能看得清清楚楚。对对，可能还比我自己更加了解我自己。
How do we ensure that governments don't purloin this Internet of Things third industrial revolution and use it to hack the elections of other governments. That's already beginning to happen. How do we ensure that Internet companies, whether it be Facebook or Google or Amazon or Alibaba, don't monopolize this Internet for commercial purposes, commodify the lifetime value of all of our personal experiences and our data, then sell them to others, and then commodify us and actually, through algorithm governance, actually guide our lives? That's already happening.
Algorithms have begun to play a role in the governing of cities in North America as well. Vancouver was the first city in Canada to deploy predictive policing. Artificial intelligence analyzes data about past crimes, predicts where a crime might happen next, and sends cops to prevent it.
The main driver that motivated us to even go down this route was a significant increase in property crime. As you can see, just in this first quarter, we went from 647 residential break-in entries in the first quarter. We rolled out predictive policing April 1st. By the end of first quarter, the beginning of second quarter, we dropped to 438 residential break-in enters. That number is the lowest number of residential break-in enters we have going back 30 years of data. So when we load this up, this shows the active forecast.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 houses. That is
pretty much. One of them out of these 6 locations will probably observe something suspicious.
Does this actually work?
Yeah, you saw the numbers.
But on any given time, if a police officer goes there, they have a 30 to 60% chance that they will actually prevent that.
Yeah, you have to have cops everywhere on all those locations that rotate every 2 hours.
We're just coming up onto McGill Street off of McGill. So we're literally right in the forecasted location right now.
Is there often break-in enters in the middle of the day?
Yes. Yeah, you'd be surprised. Between 2 to 4, you actually get quite a few. Looking for anybody that looks like they would be casing a place. This is algorithmic policing, and that's what we're talking about. It's the advent of algorithmic policing permeating into everything we do.
Vancouver police are seeing results after only a year.